Forgetting her phone, the lawyer went home and entered quietly. But she didn't expect to find this. Clara, a brilliant lawyer from New York, finds herself trapped in a loveless marriage until a shocking discovery changes everything. As she struggles to protect her inheritance and face a complicated divorce, she encounters the responsibility of raising an unexpected baby and a mysterious partner, Eduardo, who brings new meaning to her life. Clara always had a rigorous routine. As a renowned lawyer in New York, her days began before the sun rose and ended well after it set. Life at the law firm was frantic, with piles of documents to review and endless meetings. Her colleagues admired her for her dedication and success, but Clara carried an invisible burden: loneliness. Her marriage to Thomas, a successful businessman, had turned into a cold formality. Conversations between them were reduced to practical and social matters, and the house they shared had become more of a monotonous stage than a home. Clara often found herself trapped in a cycle of work and isolation, where love and intimacy were distant memories. That Friday, Clara left work a little earlier than usual. The weekend promised to be hectic with a charity event she and Thomas were organizing. On her way home, Clara realized she had forgotten her phone at the office. "Damn," she murmured to herself. The traffic was chaotic, and going back meant losing at least another hour. Determined, Clara turned back. Upon reaching the office, she quickly grabbed her phone and returned to the car. The sky was starting to darken, and the city's lights twinkled as she drove. When she finally parked at home, she felt relieved to see the lights still off. Thomas should be at the golf club, as he was every Friday. Clara entered quietly, wanting to avoid any noise that might alert the staff of her arrival. She climbed the stairs slowly, and as she approached the bedroom, she heard voices. She stopped, surprised. Thomas was talking on the phone, but not in a professional tone. There was an intimacy in his voice that made Clara shudder. "I love you. I can't stand this situation anymore. We need to meet soon," Thomas said. Clara felt the ground crumble beneath her feet. Her heart was racing, and her mind refused to process what she had just heard. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit: the frequent trips, the last-minute meetings, the emotional distance. Clara had always suspected something was wrong, but she never had concrete proof. She leaned against the wall, trying to control her breathing. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit: the frequent trips, the last-minute meetings, the emotional distance. Clara had always suspected something was wrong, but she never had concrete proof. Thomas hung up the phone, and Clara retreated silently. She went down the stairs carefully, trying not to make any noise, and left the house. Outside, the night air was cold, but she felt nothing but a deep pain in her chest. Determined to face the truth, Clara knew she couldn't continue in that situation. She needed a strategy, she needed a plan. Clara entered the house again, this time determined to confront Thomas. She waited until he came down for dinner and, with a determined look, called him for a conversation. "Thomas, we need to talk," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, Clara." "What's going on?" he responded, trying to hide his concern. "I know about the phone call," she said directly. "Who is she?" Thomas paled. For a moment it seemed like he would deny it, but then he sighed. "There's no point in lying, is there?" "Clara, I want a divorce." Those words were like a punch to the stomach. Clara felt the tears burning her eyes but refused to let them fall. "How long, Thomas?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Years," he replied coldly. "I fell in love with someone else and can't live this lie anymore." Clara felt her world collapse. She knew her marriage wasn't perfect, but she never imagined Thomas would betray her so blatantly. He left, leaving her alone in the living room, surrounded by the crushing silence of her new reality. The memories of the happy moments they shared became bitter, and Clara knew her life would never be the same. The pain of Thomas's betrayal was still fresh when Clara found herself in a crowded meeting room the next morning. The strong coffee wasn't enough to mask the sleepless nights and the exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. While her boss, Mr. Lawson, discussed details of the new case, Clara struggled to stay focused. At the end of the meeting, her longtime colleague and friend, Lucas, noticed something was wrong. He waited until everyone left before approaching her. Clara, you seem a bit down. Is everything okay? Clara tried to smile but failed. Thomas asked for a divorce, she confessed, her voice trembling. Lucas, who knew the couple's history well, remained silent for a moment, absorbing the information. Clara, I'm so sorry, he finally said, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. If you need anything, I'm here. Clara nodded, feeling the tears welling up in her eyes again. Thank you, Lucas. I really need some time to process all this. She spent the rest of the day trying to focus on work, but the pain persisted like a shadow, following her everywhere. When she returned home that night, she found a suitcase at the entrance. Thomas had left his things and a note. I'm going to Jennifer's apartment. We need to discuss the terms of the divorce as soon as possible. Clara held the note tightly, feeling the anger boil. Jennifer. Finally a name for the mistress. She quickly climbed the stairs, determined to end this once and for all. She couldn't live in that uncertainty and pain anymore. The next day, Clara called her old friend and college roommate, Rachel. Rachel was a renowned psychologist and one of the few people who had always suspected Thomas's intentions. Rachel, I need a favor. Can I stay with you for a while? Clara asked, her voice trembling. Of course, Clara. You know you always have a place here, Rachel replied without hesitation. Clara packed her things and left the house that now felt like a tomb of broken dreams. When she arrived at Rachel's apartment, she was greeted with a warm hug. We'll get through this together, Clara, Rachel said firmly. You're not alone. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. Clara went through waves of despair and frustration, feeling lost without her husband by her side. Despite everything, Rachel supported her every step of the way, patiently listening and offering advice. I always knew Thomas wasn't the right person for you, Rachel said one night while they drank wine on the balcony. But you're strong, Clara. You'll get through this. Determination began to grow in Clara. She decided to focus on work, using her free time to resume hobbies she had abandoned. Slowly, she found strength in the small victories of everyday life. The first major challenge was finding a new place to live. With Rachel's help, Clara started looking for apartments. You need a place that's just yours, where you can start over, Rachel said. Clara agreed, but the idea of being alone still scared her. Finally, they found a cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood. Clara felt a wave of relief when she moved in. The empty walls and rooms waiting to be furnished represented a blank canvas, ready to be filled with new memories. One night, while unpacking boxes, Clara found an old letter from her Aunt Margot. She fondly remembered the time spent with her, a strong woman who had raised her after her mother's untimely death. You're strong like your mother, Clara. Never forget that, the letter said. Her aunt's words renewed her determination. Clara always wanted to have children, a dream she shared with Thomas at the beginning of their marriage. However, in recent years, failed attempts and fertility tests showed there were complications. She remembered the consultations and the silent tears after each negative result. Now, the revelation of Thomas's betrayal made that pain even more intense. She wondered if he had given up on the marriage because they couldn't have children. This doubt gnawed at her soul and increased her determination to move forward alone. Clara decided to schedule one last appointment with her doctor to better understand her options. The doctor, a kind man named Dr. Mitchell, welcomed her with a reassuring smile. Clara, I know the news in the past wasn't good, but medicine advances quickly. Let's see what we can do for you. Leaving the office, Clara felt a twinge of hope. She knew the road ahead would be tough, but she was determined to fight for her dreams, even if she had to walk a new path. Clara was ready to face the challenges, with the determination to turn her pain into strength. Clara began to find a new rhythm of life. The mornings were filled with work at the office, where she dedicated herself diligently to her clients' cases, and the evenings were spent in the comfort of her new apartment, where she found peace and a sense of belonging. Life, though still marked by the pain of betrayal, was slowly returning to normal. One day, at the office, Clara received an unexpected phone call. Mrs. Clara? This is your Aunt Margot's lawyer, said a formal voice on the other end of the line. Unfortunately, your aunt recently passed away, and we need to discuss the details of the will. The news of her aunt's death was a hard blow. Clara always had a special affection for Margot, who had raised her with so much love and dedication. She felt a huge void upon learning of the loss, but decided she needed to face this challenge with courage. A few days later, Clara met with the lawyer to discuss the will. "Your Aunt Margot left you a considerable inheritance," said the lawyer, handing her a folder full of documents. "Additionally, there is a company you inherited, and half of it belongs to a man named Eduardo. Your aunt trusted him very much." Clara was surprised. She didn't know her aunt owned a company, much less that there was a partner. "Who is Eduardo?" she asked, flipping through the documents. "Mr. Eduardo is a businessman who recently had an accident and uses crutches," the lawyer explained. "He will be your partner in managing the company." Intrigued, Clara decided she needed to meet Eduardo and better understand the situation. She scheduled a meeting for the next day, full of expectations and a twinge of curiosity. The next morning, Clara headed to the address of the company she had inherited. The building was imposing, with a modern and elegant facade. Upon entering, she was greeted by a friendly receptionist who led her to Eduardo's office. Eduardo was a man of about 40, with a serious but friendly demeanor. The crutches beside the chair indicated the difficulties he faced. "Hello, Clara. I'm sorry for your loss," he said, standing to greet her. "Thank you, Eduardo," Clara replied, shaking his hand. "My aunt never mentioned the company to me. I'm surprised but willing to learn." Eduardo smiled. "Your aunt was an amazing woman. She built this company with a lot of effort and dedication. I was by her side for much of that journey. I'm here to help with whatever is necessary." As Eduardo showed Clara around the company, explaining the operations and introducing the team, Clara felt a new hope blossom. The idea of managing a prosperous business was challenging but also exciting. She found in Eduardo a reliable and experienced partner, someone she could trust to guide her through this new chapter of her life. Things seemed to be stabilizing, but Clara's tranquility was shaken again. Her lawyer called her for an urgent meeting. "Clara, we have a problem," he said with a grave tone. "Thomas is trying to claim the company and the family home in the divorce proceedings." Clara felt the anger grow inside her. "He can't do that. The company is my aunt's inheritance. It has nothing to do with our marriage." "Yes, but he's claiming that you used marital resources to invest in the company," the lawyer explained. "We need evidence to refute this claim." Determination replaced the anger. Clara knew she had to fight for what was hers. With Eduardo's help, she began gathering all the necessary documents and evidence to defend her position. The nights became longer and the days more intense, but Clara was willing to fight with all her strength. During this turbulent period, Clara and Eduardo grew even closer. They spent long hours together, discussing strategies and preparing the company's defense. Mutual trust and respect grew, and Clara found in Eduardo not just a business partner, but also a friend and emotional support. One night, while working late at the office, Eduardo looked deeply into Clara's eyes. "You are an amazing woman, Clara. Your strength and determination are inspiring." Clara felt a warmth in her chest. "Thank you, Eduardo. I couldn't have done this without you. You have been an anchor in this storm." They shared a moment of silence, both aware of the connection forming between them. The hope of better days and curiosity about the future filled the air, creating an atmosphere of expectation and renewal. The divorce proceedings were in full swing, and each hearing seemed more exhausting than the last. Clara, determined to protect her aunt's inheritance, worked tirelessly with Eduardo and her lawyer to gather all the necessary evidence. During one of these meetings, Clara received an unexpected phone call from a local hospital. Thomas's mistress had given birth to a girl and abandoned the baby at the hospital. Not knowing what to do, Clara decided to visit the hospital. Upon arrival, Clara was greeted by a kind nurse who led her to the newborn ward. "She's beautiful," said the nurse, pointing to the crib where the baby slept. "The biological parents abandoned her, and now we're looking for someone who can adopt her." Clara looked at the girl, feeling a wave of emotions. Tears streamed down her face as she picked the baby up. The feeling of love and responsibility was instant. "I want to adopt her," Clara said, her voice firm despite the emotion. This child deserves a chance to have a loving family. Clara's decision to adopt her ex-husband's and his mistress's daughter was not easy for everyone around her to accept. Rachel was concerned. "Clara, are you sure about this? It's a big responsibility, and you're already dealing with so much." "I know, Rachel," Clara replied, stroking the baby's head. "But when I held her in my arms, I felt it was the right thing to do. I want to give her a better life." Eduardo, on the other hand, immediately supported Clara's decision. "You have an incredible heart, Clara. Adopting this girl is proof of your generosity and courage." With Eduardo's help, Clara began the adoption process. The court hearings became even more complicated as Thomas tried to use the situation to his advantage. He claimed Clara was unfit to care for the child, but Clara and her lawyer were prepared to refute all accusations. During one of the hearings, an unexpected figure appeared, Jennifer, Thomas's mistress. With swollen eyes from crying, she approached Clara after the session. "I didn't know Thomas was married when we met," Jennifer said, her voice breaking. "I feel horrible about all of this and want to help." Clara looked at Jennifer, surprised. "What do you mean by help?" "I want to be present in my daughter's life, even if it's as a nanny. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to do the right thing," Jennifer explained, tears streaming down her face. After a moment of reflection, Clara nodded. "If you really want to be part of her life and are willing to change, we can try. But there will be conditions." With Jennifer showing sincerity in her desire to change and help, Clara began to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Jennifer started visiting Clara's house to help with the baby, and gradually, a relationship of respect began to form between the two women. Eduardo's support remained steadfast. He and Clara spent most nights working together, discussing strategies and sharing comfortable moments of silence. Clara felt a deep connection with Eduardo, something she had never felt before with Thomas. Eduardo had casually mentioned the possibility of a surgery that could improve his mobility, but always treated the subject with some disdain, not wanting to create expectations. However, seeing Clara's struggle and her dedication to giving the baby a loving home, Eduardo decided to go ahead with the operation. "Clara, I scheduled the surgery for next month," Eduardo said one night while they were in the office. "I want to be able to walk without crutches, to stand by your side on equal footing." Clara, touched by Eduardo's determination, smiled and hugged him. "You'll overcome this, Eduardo. I'll be by your side every step of the way." The day of the surgery arrived, and Clara was by Eduardo's side, holding his hand before he was taken to the operating room. "Everything will be fine," she said, her voice full of hope. The hours of waiting were agonizing. Clara paced back and forth in the waiting room, trying to calm her nerves. When the doctor finally appeared with a smile on his face, Clara felt a wave of relief. "The surgery was successful," announced the doctor. "Eduardo will need physical therapy, but everything indicates that he will be able to walk normally." Clara felt tears of relief stream down her face. When she saw Eduardo awake and smiling at her, she knew that together they could overcome anything. Eduardo, still groggy from the anesthesia, squeezed Clara's hand and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me." After the surgery, Eduardo began a rigorous physical therapy regimen. Clara accompanied him to each session, encouraging him and helping him through the difficult moments. Eduardo's determination was inspiring, and Clara felt the bond between them strengthen every day. Jennifer also showed genuine commitment to redeeming herself. Her presence in Clara's home brought a new dynamic. Jennifer proved to be dedicated and caring, slowly earning Clara's trust. The two women, once rivals, now worked together for the child's well-being. The day of the final divorce hearing and the dispute over the company arrived. Clara was nervous but determined. Eduardo and Rachel were by her side in the courtroom, offering moral support. When Thomas entered the room with his lawyer, Clara felt a wave of anger and determination. During the hearing, Clara's lawyer presented all the evidence they had gathered, demonstrating that the company was her aunt's inheritance and that Thomas had no claim to it. Clara also brought witnesses who testified that marital resources were not used for the company. Thomas, on the other hand, tried every trick in the book to discredit Clara. He claimed she was unfit to care for the child and was emotionally unstable. However, With Jennifer's help, Clara was able to refute these accusations, showing that she was providing a loving and stable home for the child. In the end, the judge made his decision. Mrs. Clara, your aunt's inheritance, including the company, will remain in your possession. As for the child's custody, I see that you are providing a stable and loving environment. The adoption will be allowed. Clara felt a wave of relief and gratitude. She hugged Eduardo and Rachel, tears of happiness streaming down her face. Thomas, furious, left the courtroom without saying a word. Clara and Eduardo returned home, feeling as if a huge weight had been lifted off their shoulders. Jennifer was waiting with the baby, who now had a secure and loving future ahead. Clara hugged Jennifer, feeling a genuine connection for the first time. Thank you for everything, Jennifer. I know it hasn't been easy for you either, Clara said sincerely. Jennifer smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you for giving me a second chance, Clara. I promise I will do my best to be a good mother to her. Clara felt a new hope blossom in her heart. Eduardo, who had made impressive progress in physical therapy, was by her side, ready to face the future with her. Together, they formed a new family, united by love and the determination to overcome all adversities. With the legal battle won, Clara focused on building a stable life for her new family. Eduardo, now walking with more confidence, became an active business partner, helping to expand her aunt's company. Clara also decided to open a new chapter in her professional life. With Rachel's help, she began offering pro bono legal services to women in vulnerable situations. She wanted to use her experience to help others overcome difficulties, just as she had. Jennifer's presence in Clara's home became a constant source of support and affection. Jennifer proved to be a dedicated mother and a loyal friend. The two women developed a strong friendship based on mutual respect and understanding. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Clara, sitting in the garden with the baby in her arms, watched the last lights of the day while reflecting on the past year. Eduardo, now walking without crutches, joined her, sitting by her side. It's amazing how things have changed, isn't it? He said, holding Clara's hand. Yes, it really is, Clara replied, looking at the little girl she was holding. I never imagined my life would take this turn, but I'm glad it did. Eduardo smiled. You were the strength that kept us together, Clara. I don't know what I would have done without you. Clara felt her heart warm with Eduardo's words. And I without you, Eduardo. We have a beautiful life ahead, full of challenges but also many joys. The days following the legal battle were of intense rebuilding. Clara and Eduardo worked together to consolidate the company, which now thrived under their joint leadership. Clara also dedicated herself to the pro bono project, helping women in difficult situations, feeling fulfilled by the positive impact of her work. Jennifer became a constant and reliable presence. The relationship between Clara and Jennifer strengthened, based on mutual trust and respect. The baby, now named Sophia, grew up surrounded by love and care, with two devoted mothers and a loving father in Eduardo. One afternoon, while Clara was reviewing documents at the office, she received a call from her lawyer. Clara, I have good news. We've secured that Thomas cannot contest Sophia's adoption. The judge ruled in our favor. Clara felt immense relief. Thank you, Rachel. This means more than you can imagine. Spring arrived, bringing new beginnings and renewed hopes. Clara and Eduardo decided to celebrate Sophia's first birthday with a garden party. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered to celebrate. During the party, Clara gave an emotional speech. I want to thank everyone who has been by our side this past year. It was a difficult year, but also full of blessings. Eduardo, you are my safe harbor. Rachel, Jennifer, and everyone here, you are proof that family is not just blood, but heart. Thank you for being here and being part of our journey. The guests applauded, and Clara felt a wave of love and gratitude. Eduardo approached, holding Sophia in his arms. Our little star, he said, kissing the girl's forehead. Jennifer, with tears in her eyes, joined the hug. Thank you, Clara, for everything. Clara smiled. We are a family, Jennifer, and we will always be here for each other. As night fell, Clara, Eduardo, Jennifer, and Sophia sat under the stars, talking about the future and dreaming of the next steps. The sound of laughter and soft conversations filled the air, and Clara felt a deep sense of peace. "Clara," Eduardo began, holding her hand, "I want to spend the rest of my life by your side. You and Sophia are everything to me. Will you marry me?" Clara felt tears stream down her face, but this time they were of pure joy. "Yes, Eduardo, I want to marry you." Friends around applauded and celebrated, witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in Clara and Eduardo's life. That moment under the stars symbolized not just the end of a difficult chapter, but the start of a life full of love, hope, and new possibilities. As Clara looked at Eduardo and Sophia, she knew she had finally found the peace and happiness she had long sought. The future, once uncertain and frightening, now seemed bright and full of promises. And with her family by her side, she knew she could face any challenge that came.